Hello, and welcome to Lesson 3 of Getting to Know Jesus Through His Names. This lesson is entitled Names Reflecting Jesus' Earthly Ministry and Divine Nature. Our reading this lesson will come from the textbook by Dr. Elmer Towns, chapters 7 through 9. These chapters dive deeply into the significant names given to Jesus, reflecting both his earthly ministry and his divine nature. These chapters encapsulate the profound dual aspects of Jesus as a servant and a divine entity, underlying his roles and characteristics through his various names. Chapter 7, titled My Service Names, focuses on the names that reflect Jesus' service-oriented ministry on earth. It emphasizes his self-description as the Son of Man, who came not to be served, but to serve others, and give his life as a ransom for many. This chapter discusses various names like Rabbi and Master, which highlight his role as a teacher and leader who guides and nurtures his followers through personal interaction and parables. His name Servant emphasizes his fulfillment of the Isaiah prophecies about a suffering servant who would bear the iniquities of many. Through these names, we see a Jesus who interacts intimately with humanity, meeting physical and spiritual needs, embodying humility and selflessness, both of which are key aspects of his ministry. In chapter 8, entitled My Sonship Names, the focus shifts to the names that articulate Jesus' divine sonship and his relationship status with God the Father. Names such as Son of God, Only Begotten Son, and Beloved Son are profoundly discussed. These titles affirm his divine origin and unique relationship with the Father, which is foundational to Christian doctrine. This chapter explores how these names are not only confessions of his divine nature, but also reflect his role in the divine plan of salvation, where his sonship guarantees his authority to atone for sin. Chapter 9 is titled My Godhead Names, and these discuss the most explicitly divine names of Jesus, such as Immanuel, God with us, the Word, Logos, and Alpha and Omega. These names highlight theological truths about Jesus' nature as fully God and fully man. Immanuel points to the mystery of the Incarnation, God taking on human flesh and dwelling among people. The Word speaks to Jesus as the divine Logos, a core concept in the theology of the book of John that establishes Jesus as pre-existent and active in creation. Alpha and Omega emphasizes his eternal nature and sovereign dominion over time. Understanding these names is crucial for grasping the full scope of Jesus' identity and his work as the Messiah. Each name encapsulates an aspect of his mission and character, contributing to a fuller appreciation of who Jesus is and what he represents. The prophetic names in the Old Testament and their fulfillment in the New Testament affirm the consistency and reliability of God's salvational plan through Jesus Christ. These names not only enrich personal faith, but also deepen the theological understanding necessary for teaching and defending Christian doctrine. They bridge the Old and New Testaments, showcasing the fulfillment of ancient prophecies and the continuity of God's redemptive plan. This depth of understanding fosters a robust faith that appreciates the historical and spiritual dimensions of Jesus as the Messiah, who is both servant and sovereign, human and divine. But knowing all this, that is to say, knowing more about the names of Jesus, which reflect his earthly ministry and divine nature, how does that knowledge affect our faith walk today? So let's dig in a little more and discover how these names of Jesus relate to his interactions, teachings, and the broader theological implications of his divinity as outlined in the discussed chapters. In chapter 7, the service names like Rabbi and Master directly relate to Jesus' day-to-day interactions and teachings during his earthly ministry. As Rabbi, Jesus acted as a teacher, not just in formal settings, but in everyday conversations, using parables and direct discourse to impart wisdom and moral teaching to his followers and listeners. This name underscores his role as an educator in the Jewish traditions, yet one who often challenged existing interpretations of the law and offered a deeper, more compassionate understanding. The name servant connects deeply with Jesus' interactions, particularly in how he approached service. Unlike secular or religious leaders of the time who might have lorded their authority over others, Jesus inverted this expectation. He washed the feet of his disciples, a task reserved for non-Jewish slaves, as a profound act of humility and service. This act underlined his teachings on servant leadership, where the greatest among his followers was to be like the youngest and the leader like the one who serves. Chapter 8 reflects on names such as Son of God, which articulate Jesus' divine nature and his unique relationship with the Father. This sonship is not just a title, but an essential aspect of his identity that influenced his teachings and interactions. For instance, when Jesus taught about the kingdom of God, he spoke with authority directly derived from his relationship with the Father, offering assurances like, "All things have been handed over to me by my Father." This relationship allowed him to reveal the Father to anyone whom he chooses, emphasizing the exclusivity of his revelation and authority. In interactions, the name Son of God also reassured his followers of their direct access to God through him. When he calmed the storms, his disciples marveled, saying, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" A direct acknowledgement of his divine authority and power. Chapter 9 deals with names like Immanuel, the Word, and Alpha and Omega, each profoundly theological and indicative of Jesus' divine essence. Immanuel, which means God with us, provides theological grounding for the incarnation, the doctrine that God took on human flesh. This name suggests that in Jesus, God interacted with humanity in a personal and physical way, bridging the infinite divide between the divine and the human. The word, logos, brings theological depth to understanding how Jesus is both the communicator and the embodiment of God's revelation. In John's prologue, Jesus, as logos, is presented as both with God and as God from the beginning, reinforcing his active role in creation and his authority in all teachings. His use of "I am" statements directly links his teachings to his identity and mission, providing clarity and authority to his declarations. Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, asserts Jesus' sovereignty over time and existence, reinforcing the eschatological teachings where Jesus speaks of the end times and his return. This name assures believers of his control over all things, from the beginning of creation to the end of the age, and it frames his teachings within the context of divine sovereignty and eternal purpose. So what we see is that the names of Jesus are not merely titles, and they are certainly not meaningless labels. They are revelations that inform us of his nature, his works, and his ways. They link his everyday interactions and profound teachings to his divine identity, offering us, as believers, a holistic view of who Jesus is, the servant, the Son, and the sovereign God. These names deepen our understanding of the theological implications of Jesus' divinity, affirming his role in salvation history as the Messiah who is fully capable and divinely appointed to redeem and to rule.